Okay. All right. Hey, YouTube folks. Welcome. Halfling Wizard here with some special guests today. I've got Russell and Austen, who are two players in my Gods of Orlea campaign, the Temporal campaign. So welcome, guys.
Good to be here. It's really fun.
Hello.
So right off the bat, and I'll start with the order in our screens here. I'll start with Russell first. Tell us, when did you get involved with D&D? How long have you been involved with D&D? Let me ask that.
So I guess the very first thing, I guess that happened, I think it was like back in like 2013 or 14. Austen, who is here, he was talking about AD&D, and we had this character concept of a duo. I was a Warforged monk, and he was like some tiefling wizard or sorcerer that I was his bodyguard, and we never got to play it.
Never got to play that.
It was a really good idea, and I still remember it. And that was the first thing. I got into Pathfinder like a couple or 1 year later.
Okay. Austin, what about you? How long have you been in the fantasy realm of D&D?
Well, I had religious upbringing, and while I was always interested in this sort of thing and had heard about it, I didn't feel like I was allowed to do that sort of thing. And when I ended up going my first year of college, I met Lisa Martin and met her through theater, and I think it was my first year. And we were talking, and she was talking about how she had all the AD&D books and how she used to play. And I was with Spencer at the time, and we were both really excited about it. And so she gave me all her books. I voraciously read them, and I DM'd. I became a forever DM from the start. So not so much anymore, but at the time, yeah.
Okay.
I still can't believe we haven't played Lucky Hyde. And what was your character's name? That was the sorcerer. Ah, man. I can't believe I forgot that we had missed that. We need to do like a 2-person campaign where it's just us. That would be so much fun. Anyway.
Well, I got involved. I was telling the others, I got involved way back in like first edition. See, I remember first edition. And then I was 1 and 2. Now I played in college for a while, and then I didn't play at all until we all got together. That's when I got back into it. So, and that was as a player, and then I wanted to dangle my feet into the waters of GMing, and now here I am. So, loving it both. Well, I get to be a player as well because I'm a player in your campaign, Austin, and I get to be the GM in my own. So, yeah. So it's been fun. It's been an experience. Funny thing is I'll tell you, Austin, you're the one that really got me wanting to be a GM. Watching you GM made me want to be a GM.
Aww.
And no, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything, but it was.
There are so many things he could have done better, and I just had to show him.
Nah.
That's why I started DMing. I needed to punish him somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah. Russell's like, oh man, Austin's all about that role play. He doesn't play enough combat encounters. He doesn't punish the players enough.
That's fair. No, well, since we're already on GMing, we can talk about GMing first. So, Russell, I have only played with you as a GM once for a minuscule little part.
Yes, a one-off. It was so when Austin was talking about his campaign a bunch, his original idea, if you don't mind me saying, but it was the fact that everybody GM'd a part of that campaign at some point, and if Austin wanted a week off, we would GM basically, and he had his own character in that world. And that was the only that's the only time I've GM'd 5th edition. All I do is GM Pathfinder 1 and 2nd edition. Just fun.
Okay.
My brain is a sieve. I completely forgot that was the intent
That was the
of the campaign. You guys need to, put in some work. You guys have really been. I'm joking.
But no, it's interesting. Even though I was in that little bit of moment with you, Russell, it's really interesting to see the different dynamics between you and Austen. I mean, it's pretty cool, actually. I think it's really neat because Austin, you're very cerebral, which is one of where I tend to lean towards, is that sort of storyline. But when I was even in that, that little bit of moment in that one Pathfinder campaign, had a pretty big impact on me as well, because of all of the cool, because of all the combat, the fighting part of it was super fun and very structured and really, really cool. It was fun to watch and participate in that and for a little bit. But so I, believe it or not, I've sort of molded the way I do it based on the way both of you did yours. So I kind of try. So that's why I try to have, at all times, I try to have equal story as well as combat, so that you're always going to fight something, but you're also going to try to find, we're going to talk character stuff. So I try to get all that in there. I really try to balance it out, because I know there are players who play for the character work and and that sort of character back and forth, and then there's the ones that do it for the combat part of it. Because I was in one of my very first groups I was ever in. I was the only character-driven player in the group. Everybody else was like, "Let's fight something right now," and I was just like, "Well, let's talk about its feelings." And then like, it's like, "Well, we just want to beat it down, and we'll talk about its feelings after we kill it." That sort of thing. So
I remember. I'm sorry to interject.
No, you're fine.
I remember the first character I made was, the first character you make is usually who you want to be. It's like a fulfillment thing. And so he was an elf wizard named Luthien, and he was a pacifist, and I was intent upon playing 2nd edition D&D as a pacifist. And Lisa pulled me aside, and she was like, "I don't think you're getting it." She was like, "You can't be a pacifist." I was like, "Watch me, I'm role playing." So, yeah. Of course, and in AD&D, as a first level wizard, you cast your spell, and then I just, I won't swear, but I went back to the other part of the dungeon where there was some wine barrels, and I started making like a fortress out of the. But
that's fantastic. Yeah, my first character, the very first one I ever made way back in the day, is basically my character I play in your campaign, Austin. He was much higher level back then because we got him all the way up to maximum, but Soren is the halfling wizard, is that old. So I mean, I just brought him with me.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I didn't tell anybody, because I was like, because I loved that character. He's much different in your campaign because I've kind of tweaked him a bit differently, but yeah, he's Soren all the way. His name's a little different too. He wasn't known as Soren Halfden then. He was just known as Soren, but yeah, so I brought him into your campaign. I was super excited to do that. So what was your first character that you remember, Russell?
Oh, I remember him fully well because he became a god. His name is Gikor the Indifferent. He was originally a fighter who ended up becoming a Gish sort of wizard fighter character. And he was like Austen, so it was kind of that realm of the first character you make is in your realm. He was but I'm not very strong in real life, so he has 20 strength and 5 charisma, so it was really fun to play that guy.
That's fun.
It was fun to DM for that guy.
It was really good.
That's great.
All
So
he wanted was a sword.
was that for
14, 15 levels later.
Yep.
was that the Pathfinder one that you guys
Yep.
were doing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's funny. I remember hearing stories about him wanting to find that sword.
There are a lot of stories from that campaign.
Yeah, I've heard most of
It
it,
would take up like 3 podcasts to tell the whole thing.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I did a video earlier today, and this is going to be to you, Austen, only because I've had this experience with you. I did another video earlier today on D&D and its and the need for the inclusivity of like sex, sensuality, orientation, that sort of thing. And one of the stories that I told was the Soren and the dwarf story when we were in the cell. And the reason I told that story is because it was important to me that, well, not to me, but to the character, and that he basically get this dwarf to stop this weapon. And I was like, well, if there's, and I used his Soren's sexuality to make that happen. And the great thing about that was that you went with it. You didn't try to stop it, which, a lot of people would have. They're probably like, oh, well, let's because we all know that like sex, sensuality, orientation, it's very touchy, to some people. But I'll give you credit because you went with it, and it was great because it was, and everybody else was giggling and laughing, and which is fine because it was funny. But I want to get your point of view on that idea of the importance of that, of letting a player express themselves.
Certainly. So I think there is a power other orientations at play. Either it's expanding your horizons and knowing that there's not just people like you in the world, or it's seeing something in another thing that you recognize within yourself, and it brings out an inner joy. I remember the first time I saw, this is a Doctor Who reference, Captain Jack Harkness. And I saw in him something that I wish I had. And so I really looked up to him as a character. And I love the actor and all that too. But then there's being able to experiment with that in an environment without judgment. And I think that is invaluable. And I'm always willing to go with the characters. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of discussion lately around the game in terms of like veils and shadows and veils. What is it called? Something in veils, and then red cards.
Yes.
Which is not something that I have used in my game. I've thought about it and probably will at some point. The people in my game are so close to me personally that it hasn't come up. Although I still think I should. But if everyone's comfortable, if everyone's having fun, why not? And why would? And to me, it would feel very hypocritical because I've seen so many bards seduce so many tavern girls or dragons or liches or you name it, and to deny that simply because it was not something I experienced before, would be wrong.
Cool. Yeah.
Um,
That's basically
and
what
actually,
I
there's another example. Remember when we were playing my 5e game, and there was Scruffy, the guy in the traveling.
Yes.
Yeah, and Soren.
Yeah.
So
I talked about that. I talked about my character, him in his sexual escapades.
Well, I love it. And,
yeah.
You don't make it like a primary thing. I was certainly surprised when that was the tactic you used, but I was like, oh man, this is great. Everyone's having fun, and that's the point. So
exactly. Cool. Yeah, I just I wanted to get your take on it because we had that particular moment with the dwarf and which was much more explicit than like Soren and his other and things. But so I just wanted to touch on that because I think it's important that not be so taboo. I know that a lot of GMs are very uncomfortable with it, and especially in today's environment, I get it. But if you and I think that it's important as GMs that if you have a player that wants to experience that with their character, I think it's important that you have a conversation about it, and I mean, even though you and I did not have a conversation about it, you and I know one another, so we knew each other on a personal level, so it was different between us. But if it was me and someone I didn't know, then I would have a conversation.
I think. Yeah, I mean, it's just like in improv and theater, you need to have a negotiation beforehand, where your no squares are,
right?
What you can't do,
right? Exactly.
I did take great care to choose my words in that encounter in a way that would not be offensive to other people around the table.
Exactly.
I think we couched in euphemism most of the things I think we talked about. It talked about the manner in which things unfolded, like the spirit of things, but not the mechanics of things.
No, absolutely not. No. I mean, it wasn't like we weren't describing pornography. I mean, it was. I mean, even later. And even later when we were back at the place, I mean, Soren he asked about him. So it wasn't like hey, I'm doing this just to get the key or whatever, to get it to turn it off. I mean, he was kind of like interested in the guy. And so, I mean, it was, my thing about my character, about Soren. Soren's not one of those, one night stand kind of halflings. I think he develops feelings very quickly for people.
I lost you for a bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you did freeze a little bit there. I was just saying that, Soren is not one of those one night stand kind of halflings. He's, he actually develops feelings for people. I mean, that sort of thing. So, yeah. So go ahead.
I think the idea that Soren has bad taste in men / dwarves is a great character choice.
I'm glad we got the round by round take. A lot of people who play in my games, if they want to like get a girlfriend or fall in love or something, or one night stand, they're like, let's fade to dark. And I'm like, cool, we can do that.
All right.
Yeah.
If you're
well,
it's okay. I get that.
You're right. And Russell, that's normally how I do it. But the fact that we were also in a combat encounter at the same time meant that he had a turn.
Yeah.
He had.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
you couldn't fade to black on that one necessarily. So
a lot of things in 6 seconds.
We did fade to black at one point. I took you out of I think I took you out of the combat and said, okay, this is happening now, and I'll let this happen.
Yeah.
And pay attention to it.
Yeah. But so, all right. So speaking of characters, let's talk about you two in my campaign, because these are great. And this is the first time I've had siblings, and so let's talk a little bit about. Now, I know you guys collaborated because they're brothers, so you needed to collaborate with each other so you could kind of get your backgrounds or your history straight. So you guys walk us through a little bit of how these two came about. And this is Ossric and Roghir, Mithrilborne. That's who we're talking about. So whoever would like to go first.
I think originally we were just thinking about, oh, what could we do that we can do together? We haven't had something. We don't play in a game very often together, so we were thinking about, oh, what if we did a duo together? And what if we were brothers? And then I said Dwarf Bros, and then he said Dwarf Bros, and we kind of just went in on that.
Dwarf Bros.
And then we were brainstorming ideas for a dwarven last name, and we couldn't get away from the whole shtick of like dwarven last names being about some sort of metal or mine or something like that.
Right.
So I found a lot of better names now after we've created the act, of course.
Yeah.
But Mithrilborne was just like, oh wow, this is kind of nice. And
It's actually very regal. I mean, it
Yeah.
actually does have a very like, chiefly sound to it. Like the Mithrilborns are like, high up on that hierarchy. I mean, it
Which
really
is
does
why-
kind of have that feel to it.
which is why I think we kind of came down to it maybe, and why it sounded so nice, because we ended up being princes basically, I guess is the term. So yeah, we're royalty technically. Though I don't think Ossric thinks of him as royalty himself anymore.
For my part, I mean, I consider Russell a brother, and so it was great to get to play with him
Yeah, I got you.
with that dynamic. And
I think you froze up on us.
Oh no.
Oh no.
But I will
Well, we
say
it also makes me
there
talk
he is.
about what
you froze on us.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We need to talk about mechanically how we wanted to synergize.
Oh, yeah.
And while that didn't really come to fruition, I think 5e, for all its merits, doesn't have some of the teamwork synergies that I would like. I've been thinking about some stuff in that regard, but
we're like a half teamwork for the most part.
yeah,
You
But-
have some support.
yes, I can keep you alive, and I think that's all you need. I just keep you alive, and then you just destroy everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's a great dynamic. That's funny. We've talked when I've talked to Lisa and Amber, they've both mentioned that the idea that basically Russell has his own medic.
Yep.
I'm everyone's
Most part.
medic, but yeah.
It's really good. We both of our characters kind of think about each other first because we're brothers, and it kind of shows when either Lisa or Amber just kind of like notice that we've like not included them in something. It's like, hey, and we're like, yeah, we're we're used to
Right.
like ordering
you're
each other
brothers.
around.
I mean, you're brothers.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that idea, that dynamic. I get the idea of the siblings.
Oh no,
you know.
they're valid in their concerns about us worrying about them, but
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
no,
just kind of
absolutely.
us.
I totally agree with you. But I understand,
But
the dynamic of the brothers.
they actually brought up something that I've been thinking about a lot since making these characters, which is I didn't realize the importance beforehand of, during a session 0, establishing previous relationships between the characters. Just making him and I brothers has given us so much to work on,
Oh yeah.
and so much fodder for creativity. And it's great when you put people in those relationships, how quickly they settle into them. I think that how he and I treat each other are very much brothers. I think we take liberties with each other that only brothers would, and I think if you didn't set up that relationship from the beginning, that the game would be much less interesting. And I think from now on, when I have a game, I'm going to have everybody make those type of interstitial relationships. But
No, I agree with that. I think those relationships are important because even in your campaign, Austin, like myself and Lisa's character, Soren and Sahara, have a very strong connection, more so with each other than with the others in the group. And not that we don't care about the others in the group, but for some reason, those two characters have really kind of meshed together, and we kind of look out for one another. But I get that, you know. And the other thing is that watching y'all's characters grow from when we first met you, because Austin, I'll tell you, your character probably out of the two has grown the most, like changed wise. Ossric has been very, very steady up until this last campaign, up until the most recent events. We've seen Ossric very kind of steady and like who he is, and you know, he has some conflict, but he's for the most has been very steady. But Roghir has changed a lot. Like his whole attitude is different. It's like, I mean, when we first met him, he was very, very inward. He was very, very inward. Now he's a lot more on the outside. Which
can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was saying that when we first met Roghir, you were very inward, and now you're very outward. Like your personality is very outward now, far more, because which I love, because I was curious as to how or if or how you were going to sustain that holy man, sort of like the stereotypical holy man, you know, persona, which I think you've been shedding over the last few sessions, which I love.
Well, if you don't mind me delving into that just a little bit.
Of course not.
I'm sorry, I feel like I'm keeping Russell from talking. But what would be different than a normal game, you know, if that were the case? So I think going back to the partnership thing, I think the reason it works so well is that our goals we're so antithetical at the start. My goal was to bring him back to the capital so he could fulfill his role as a leader. And his goal was to not do that. And so I think the shedding of things is coming from one. I think Roghir kind of feels very manipulated, and it's funny, as the holy man, you would think that he would be the one most willing to be manipulated by higher powers, but now that they are taking over his life, he feels like something's wrong, like this is not how things are supposed to be, and he feels powerless in a way that he doesn't like. And I think those are interesting things to play with a person of faith, and to wrestle with those questions. What is your part to play, and are you willing to play it? Is it right for them to ask for this from you? You know, and those type of things.
And are you willing to give up complete control?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and then the other thing is that seeing my brother, seeing his reticence to lead, and his passivity is pushing me more and more toward an active role. Even though that I don't have the charisma to lead people in the way even though I stumble and don't have a forceful personality, I would say, as a character. Even though that's the case, I think the natural impetus is for him to take up more and more space. But anyway, I love the theological questions, having been raised in a Baptist household. I think, are we frozen?
No,
No, you okay, good.
I'm intently listening to you.
Being raised Southern Baptist, and then finding a lot of issues in the church and stepping away, the theological questions that you present as someone who I believe has probably much different views on some key concepts like faith and duty, perhaps. I'm not sure. But you do have a way of,
Now we froze.
from your worldview, presenting
Hold on, you're freezing up on
questions
us.
for Roghir that, I'm sorry,
It's okay.
presenting questions that Roghir normally wouldn't consider based on your worldview. And in my secret, I put that that while I can exert holy power, I don't feel holiness. Like, I don't feel different, and so that's a concern too. Anyway,
Well, I was raised Southern Baptist as well. But then I left the Baptist church and went to the Catholic church. And that's where the idea of the gods of Orlea actually comes from my Catholicism. So yeah, I can relate to Roghir's faith and what he's going through and that sort of thing. So that's why I can ask those types of questions, and I can relate when you're like, oh, I want to ask Omnor for this. I'm like, oh, okay, I can give you an answer that I think a saint would give to someone praying, or that sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's, and I love it when you do that too. I do enjoy those moments. So, please continue doing them.
I'm sorry for brooding so much.
It's okay. No, it's okay. Well, I'm about to get into a much lighter subject, I think. So, the two of you, let's talk about the impact that the last session had on you guys, on your characters, when you found out that you had a brother you didn't know about.
It was very interesting. This is something I didn't expect or think that would be coming, but it kind of makes it makes it interesting that there's like a third party that we just didn't know about. It's kind of like you kind of feel a little betrayed a little bit in a way.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's kind of interesting because Ossric was supposed to be king he always thought that they were looking for him to be king, and he never wanted that. And lately, since Arcadia, he's been kind of thinking about, well, maybe it's not such a bad idea. And then the dream he had definitely makes him think about it a little bit differently.
Cool. Good, because that's kind of what I was going for. Okay, Roghir, what about you? How did this affect you? I mean, I know you guys, technically the characters have not had much time to process this information, but
right,
player to player.
So the surprise, like the reveal that we have a eldest brother that we didn't know about, was great. I loved it. I loved how you dealt with our father and mother, and the way that you turned our presumption on its head was great, although I hated it. I can appreciate it, but as a character, I really did want to throw down with my dad at that moment. I really did. I wanted to take that book and hit him.
Oh, I
which
know.
is
I would have too. If
why
you
I
hadn't,
think,
in fact, sorry, Russ.
which is why I think Roghir and Ossric have slightly switched roles somehow. I don't know what happened, and I think it was around Arcadia actually, where we both kind of have slunk back into he's more aggressive and like brooding and well, less free going, but
Yeah.
I think Ossric is still
Yeah,
free
you're right.
going a little
Actually,
bit.
that is true. Actually, now that I think back at it, you're right. Ever since Arcadia, it's almost like, yeah, you're right. Like the tables have turned a bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
My brother is drinking. What is going on?
Yeah. Oh, yes. 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 Um, yeah. If you hadn't just like flash forward to us being in the cells, I probably would have
Oh, I know.
started a combat right there.
That's why I flash forwarded you to the cells.
I know.
Although I
But
could have let you had a fight with your own dad.
that would have been great. Very cathartic, I'm sure.
Probably. So.
I like what the reveal does for Osric. I think that gives him an out that he wasn't expecting, and like throws into question some things that I think he was coming to a decision on, and now is reevaluating, like he said. For Roghir, I'm more worried about the vision that other people got, which was that someone was going to have to sacrifice themselves. Is what I'm taking
Right.
what I'm taking what I'm isn't that what it was told?
I didn't even talk about mine. I forgot about that.
And I'm so worried. I'm so worried that Osric is going to try to do some selfless bullshit. And sorry, I swore. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's all right.
But and I'm like, I think I'm more of a protector of my brother first and a holy man second.
Right.
And I think that's becoming more and more apparent,
Yeah.
But
no, I see that. I totally see that. Yeah. It's so funny because as we were going through this campaign, I felt bad as a GM because I had not explored you and Osric's backstory yet. And I've actually been planning this a long time. I just never had a time to implement it. And that's when I was like, well, and then I forgot about, I was like, oh, is their mom alive or dead? So that's why I texted you. But so I was like, I need to do something really big for the both of you. And this has always been this reveal, particular reveal is always it's been in my notes since forever that I wanted there to be a sibling that you didn't know about, and that no one knows about really, because once he disappeared, no one ever spoke of him again.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys were never told about him. There's nothing. He was just sort of wiped, and
that's like that betrayal that Russell talks about is just such a real thing. Like if I was writing a play, that would totally be an element, like of course the father and mother don't want to talk about this son they lost. Of course no one else in the court wants to talk about the son they lost, and so why would the two brothers know anything about it?
Mm-hmm.
It's just it is really good reveal. I like it.
Cool. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Because it felt like it was the right time to have it happen. So I was like, all right, that's where we're going. So good. I'm glad I'm assuming it's probably going to change both of you. Because the dreams that you guys had, and at the end, your mother said, find him. She's assuming that he's still alive.
Yeah. So,
and then what Austen encountered, on the ethereal plane, I don't know if she tell you guys what she encountered? I can't remember.
She did, but she went over it very loosely.
basically when she went into the ethereal plane, there were 12 dark figures, hooded figures with like blackness where their faces would be, surrounding the baby on this plinth, and like this sort of light was coming from the darkness of their faces onto the baby, and they were performing some sort of ritual on it. And she was kept trying to save the child, but she could never get through the barrier. And then she came back, and then she couldn't go back to the ethereal plane anymore. So she doesn't really know what happened there. But I have a feel. I think I wanted to do something that, because Jay Luna's had her moment, and Arson had her moment, and I was just, and to be quite honest, I was struggling with you guys because I was like, gosh, what can I do? Because I wanted to give you guys something that was truly character based, and that it would only be for you.
Yeah.
Because that's what I've done with the others. And so this reveal that happened was much more different than the original reveal that I was going to have. And I like this reveal better because it was much more personal. The other one was not very personal at all. But this one was far more personal. And so I'm excited, and I'm extremely excited to find out how these two characters are going to be now that they're going on to the next leg of their journey, because we're going to experience a lot more of Orlea. You guys are, and I gave spoilers to the other two. You guys are going to be heading south into Valmead next.
I was wondering when that was happening.
Yep. And eventually we'll get up to Fremont as well, but Valmead is definitely where we're headed to next, where you're going to be sent to next. But yeah, so the temporal campaign, the temporal part of it, do you guys have a favorite moment, a favorite time jump that we've done?
It was, I can't remember what it was called or what even the place we visited. I think it was back when we went to Winterwind Isle, I think, maybe, and because Arson knew about it.
Yes, that was, yeah.
I showed some traits about how Ossric lived in the wilds for a while, and he basically just, to find his way around, he ate off the ground and figured out his ways to go. Like, he eats objects or the earth to figure out how old these tracks are, or where they've come from.
That's right. That was the first time that you would yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun seeing their reactions.
That was fun. That was
then
fun.
there's this weird dungeon that I couldn't quite remember, but that was a lot of fun too.
Yeah, that was the one with the crazy room where you had to get out of the room by doing the paintings. The opposite side, the paintings were opposite, I believe.
You're right.
Yeah.
I remember the painting ones.
Yeah.
That was really good.
That was a fun one.
Yeah.
What about you, Austen?
I'm sorry, slight detour, because I brought to mind something I miss. Ossric, was that you were plagued by voices, and we don't get to play along with that.
So but hard to do.
Here's some character theory. Here's some theory. I'm wondering, theory crafting. What if one of the spirits is our dead brother?
So, for people who don't know this listening, Ossric has a character flaw that he has 4 spirits that he talks to. One of them is human-made. 2 of them are brothers. One's name is Birdie, I remember, because I talked to him a lot. The other one I don't remember. And the other one was a guy called Old Man. And he was just this old guy who would always give me shit or give me stuff.
Okay, I don't record
the decisions I make. But yeah, it's really hard to keep up with that kind of.
I forgot about them too.
It's really hard too, because it's like
I need to probably do something with those guys.
I should have actually wrote something about that, other than just saying, "Oh, it's my character flaw." It would probably been better to go into that, but
we still have some time. We can still play around with it.
Yeah, probably.
to be honest, the jumping around. I think the jumping around one episode that I really liked the most was very self-contained. It was that one where we were in the ruins and we had to fight two dragons.
The old Abbey.
Yeah, and there were some aspects to that episode where it was horror infused. There was like a monster of the week kind of style to it that I really appreciated. And yeah, that's probably it. Most of the time jumps have Roghir being like,
yeah, I know.
oh, here we are again with these people I'll never know again, and
Also,
everybody I've ever known is dead.
The one time jump that we were stuck with each other in pairs.
Yeah, that's the one he's
Where it
talking
was-
about. Yeah.
Me and Amber were really had some time with that one. That was really good.
That was a fun one.
Yeah.
I enjoyed
I
it.
like that it separated the brothers. I think
Yep.
that allowed us to develop more of a relationship with the other characters. Yeah.
That was completely y'all doing that. That was y'all paired off, and I was like, "Oh, okay." That wasn't the pairings that I thought was going to happen, but it did, and that was great.
Speaking on things that I wish we would do more of. I was going to teach Jade Luna how to read, but then you just gave her the ability to read.
Well, her
So I was
brother,
like,
yeah, because that comes in play later on.
yeah.
But
And then Arson just keeps trying to bed me, and I'm just like,
I know.
Well, I
And
guess
that's why that's one of the reasons I brought Burrill into the picture, because he can keep
Right.
reading.
so over the top, that guy. I like I love Boril as a character because it's such a stark contrast to my character.
Yeah.
But also, interestingly, a stark contrast to Osric's character. I think that Boril, he gives off an aura of caring very little about outward affairs, whether or not that's true. But Ossric, it's interesting because he has come into conflict with this person. I don't think he goes along with Boril on that. Like, while he does party with Boril, I think he is definitely more tethered and more cerebral than Boril is. So I think it does an interesting way of painting both the contrasts to the brothers and to their perceptions of the other, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Burrill is extreme in the party mode, and he's more of Ossric thinks of him as more of a wingman, and like the cousin that you don't meet every once in a while, and you realize how much of an idiot he is.
Oh, absolutely. He's absolutely a moron. God love him.
He's great.
But he loves the drink and he loves the ladies. So, and he'll find them everywhere he goes. He's never met a stranger. So, one of the things I love about you guys as a group is that you guys keep me on my toes. And what I mean by that is you guys do things that I absolutely have no idea that you're going to do, which is fantastic. Because
tell me more.
Like, one of the big ones was, like, in Arcadia, I gave you a house, but you were so suspicious of that house. You were like, "We're leaving. Let's go. Let's get out of here." And I'm like, "Okay, so I guess we're leaving." So, so I had a whole lot more planned for you in Arcadia. And so then I was like, "Okay, well then I'll just scrap all that and we'll do something in this labyrinth of an underground for a little bit." So then I did that whole where you had to tell your truth.
Mm-hmm.
That was punishment to you. So just so you know.
I completely didn't learn the lesson that you were trying to teach either.
No, you didn't at all.
You're like,
not at all.
Maybe it's because you're being selfish for wanting him to be the king. And I'm like, no, that's his duty, and and he's being negligent.
Which was great, and I love it. I know a lot of GMs try to, like, really push their players to go where they want them to go, and I don't want that. I want you guys to go where you want to go, and I will make it up on the fly if I have to. And a lot of the stuff sometimes I have to make up on the fly, and which I'm totally cool with. And I was telling, because I was telling Amber and Lisa that as well, that, you know, I love it when you guys do the thing that I don't expect you to do, because because to me it's actually a lot more fun, because then it's unexpected and we're all going to learn some fun stuff on the journey. So, but a lot of times I've had to make some stuff up on the fly because you've gone right instead of going left, and I was like, oh, well, all right, dang it.
Well, I think the example you brought is a good case study in character expectations, and how they were set up and how they were avoided, because the last few time jumps after we fought a big bad, we were immediately whisked away, and so the form of the adventure, it seems, was that, hey, there's a wrong that needs to be righted here, or there's something you need to see here, and that when you have accomplished that task, you're going to immediately be pulled away. And so when we fought all these things here, it's like, well, where is it? Where's the skeleton in the closet? When's it going to jump out at us? You know?
Shit. Okay. There is a sci-fi show that I've just been reminded of this campaign. Don't know if any of you've seen it. I don't remember the name, but every episode was just this guy who
Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
That's this
Scott
campaign.
Bakula.
And it's kind of been very
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think it's, you know, it's funny because you won't always, that won't actually always happen. That's what's so funny.
Yeah.
Like at the end of this last encounter, you know, once you defeated all those those things, you weren't whisked away immediately.
right.
I mean, I let you have a moment with your mom, and you know, and so that the whisking away so quickly won't always happen. For the most part, it has to, because I don't want you to get comfortable somewhere.
Yeah, far be it for you guys to get comfortable.
Right.
But it does. Well, I think what Roghir is feeling, the manipulation and what he's stressing against, is like, it feels very intentional that they were left there until Malgreta gave them this quest, and then they were pulled out. You know, it's very. It's not just when you defeat the evil. Sometimes there's some higher power that is wanting us to find and right wrongs, and they want us to see. They're putting us in front of what they want us to see.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last couple sessions, when things weren't happening, when we weren't being whisked around, like taken to other places, I started thinking about, like, okay, when are we going to make some decisions as a party on what to do? Because what if the gods stop pulling our strings and we're just left somewhere?
You're just like, what do we do now?
How long are we going to wait? You know?
Right. No, absolutely, and I think that's great, and I love that, because you should do that. I mean, one of the things is I think that, and I think Lisa and I we talked about, not on the video, but we talked in one of our sessions. We'd get together and talk, but talking about how these characters should live their lives. I mean, they shouldn't live their lives in anticipation of being sent somewhere, because for one, they know that if they get sent somewhere, they're all going. I mean, so you don't necessarily have to be all, oh, we have to stay right here together with each other, we have to do this stuff. It's like, let's just live, so that's why I like it when you guys go off on your own and like the towns and stuff. You don't try to stay together, and if you do, it's just because you're both going to go find something that either interests you, or it's like, you know, like in Arcadia, Ossric and Austen went off together, you know, because they're like, let's look for these dark hand folks. Let's see what's going on with these guys, you know. And you went off to the church, and Jay Luna went off to shop and do this, that, and the other. So I love that you guys split, and it gives me an opportunity to give you individual little moments too. because I really want you guys to find character stuff. I want to do more character stuff with you because I think it's important. And I think it kind of pushes us forward, and it also gives me more to work with the more character stuff that we do.
Absolutely.
You know, one of my favorite time jumps was going to the Old West. I loved that one.
Yeah, that one was a little jarring, but it was,
It was
great.
wild.
I was like, you guys get to use guns. I was like, how much fun was that? I was like, I had
Oh man. The only thing I remember about that is me like grabbing someone and like throttling them on the floor.
Yes.
I remember gambling.
I was so
Yeah.
angry at the senseless violence of everything. I was just like,
I loved it. I thought it was great.
I didn't know how the game they were playing worked, but I think
you
I won a
you
game
were
or
doing
two.
it too, man.
Yeah, I was doing it for a little bit.
Man. So I think it's the time jumps. Every time you do a time jump, you have to. There's something there that the powers that be either want you to see, want you to experience, correct, something that went wrong, make it right. Bad guys in the past, getting rid of them so that they don't alter the present or the future, which is very possible in the past. Well, we had it with Arsen because Arsen's whole character changed when she freed the dragon that gave her her powers.
mm-hmm.
And so now she grew up in a completely different light and became a completely different class, which could happen to anybody. It's like, so if you ever get a text message from me going, hey, if you could play any other class than the one you're playing, then something might be happening soon. So just be aware of that.
Well, it is interesting because I made it so that like the second born is the priest in the family, but if Ossric's the second born and that other guy actually lived, I forget his first name. I remember the second name because it's like a mixture of our two names, but
it's Thorgold.
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 Thorgol.
Okay, Thorgold.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, it does bring up interesting things.
So it's going to be interesting. So, and do you guys have any final thoughts that you'd like to share about the campaign itself, or characters, or likes, dislikes, anything, whatever you want? You won't hurt my feelings.
Russell, thank you for being my dwarf bro.
Thank you for being my dwarf bro.
You guys are fun,
bro.
It's fun to watch y'all's interactions. It's really fun.
Oh yeah, we have a good time with that. We didn't really talk much about individual. We didn't talk. Well, when we were making our characters, we didn't really go individually about what we were gonna do. We just had an idea of what each other was gonna do, which is,
well, you guys have created a really nice dynamic.
Yeah, we kind of created that out of thin air. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it is. Oh, I love it. I love the relationship. I think it's great. And I love how it's changing or evolving. Not necessarily changing, but evolving. And so actually I do have one other question real quick. How do you think these two brothers feel about the other members of this party? I mean, what are their feelings towards them?
So for which do I start with? I'm now mixing both of their names from Austen's campaign.
Jade Luna
and Arsen. So for Jade Luna, she's kind of like a sister that you go work out with a lot, and she's like, Ossric's never had a sister before, so it's kind of, and she's a lot taller than him, so it's kind of interesting. And she can keep up with him, so it's like, well, we can look after each other, and I think they get along pretty well. With Arsen, I think Uh, we haven't had a ton of interaction other than like I think they've just started to get along now. They used to not get along, I think.
Hmm.
It's hard to remember.
That's what she said. Actually, she said that, and when she was the old Arson, she was more about Roghir.
Yeah, that was
But
kind of
in the
it.
new Arson, she's more about you, and y'all like are like
That's like
competitive
exactly
with,
how I see it.
that sort of, you're both very competitive, and you're both, it's sort of like a like-minded almost.
Oh, glad
That's
we
how
felt the
she
same
feels.
way.
That's how she feels. I mean, when I talk to her about it.
It's very similar to how I feel.
Roghir, what about you?
I think, Ostrich Russell, he crystallized something I've been feeling as well, that Jade Luna is like a sister that they didn't have. And I, but I think Roghir thinks of her as a student kind of first, like, that he has something to offer her, whether it's teaching her how to read and write, or whether it's in guided meditation. For some reason, our interactions always come to, is there something you can help me with? Which she's very capable. Um, I don't know why it comes to that. I don't know why it kind of has gone to that teacher-student kind of relationship a lot.
You both are
But
also very socially awkward characters together.
Yeah, that's true.
yes,
It's pretty been
that
fun.
is true. That is true. I remember this one role play when I was when she was trying to keep us from realizing that she couldn't read,
Right.
and I was trying to gracefully offer to teach her to read,
Uh-huh.
and that didn't work out so well.
No.
Yeah, I think playing two low charisma people together can be actually very interesting and really funny, because it's like, when you set up the scene and like there's clearly stuff that we want and stuff we don't want. That was a very good scene, very good
It
improv
was. I
scene.
agree.
And then Arson came in and yes-anded that, and was like, "Oh yeah, teach me something." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll teach you some things. What do you want to learn?" And she's like, "How about the curvature of my body?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's a different type of lesson."
I know. They have places for that.
Yeah. And I think, with Arson, I think something that hasn't been touched on enough really is just like what constitutes identity. And I think this is one of the big turning points where Rohir feels like the manipulations of these gods is unconscionable, and somehow indefensible, because it took Arson in what she was, and she's a completely different person now. That Arson is worse than dead to Rohir, because he can speak with dead people. He he knows that the dead people have gained wisdom, that they can pass on, but she has never existed. Only in him does she exist. Only in
Right.
Ossric does she
So
exist.
this is a conflict of faith for you.
Oh, hugely. And I feel like any being that's willing to take away that for a person is worse than a murderer. I think it's cosmically cruel,
Yep.
and that's
So,
something he's been wrestling with.
if we've learned nothing from the Greek gods and goddesses, is they don't really give a shit.
Yes, and
I mean, seriously.
I think, he's really been expanded, because the way you have this Western idea of theology that's permeating through this Catholic lens, I believe, and very much good versus evil, and then perhaps some neutral powers in their mix somewhere, but mostly it's the pitting of good against evil, capital G, capital E kind of thing.
Yep.
And his pantheon has kind of been subsumed by this greater cosmic fight. And to Roghir, it seems more and more that the greater cosmic fight is whether it's that it's going to happen regardless, and that we're just kind of checker pieces on God and Satan's backgammon game, you know?
Right.
But
that makes sense. I mean, it totally makes sense.
But how I think of Arson now, it's kind of like looking at a completely other person, and we haven't developed a new relationship. Other people, I think, have taken to her like she's just like woken up on the wrong side of the bed, and I look at her like she is a shapeshifter, or that someone has came in and taken Arson's body, you know?
Right.
I think I was like, nice new look, and I think I high-fived her, actually.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you're like not bothered at all. And I was like,
well, I mean, the funny thing is she's more relatable to Ossric now, I think. Yeah, I don't think she was I don't think she was relatable to him as her old self. She was more relatable to you, Roghir. Yeah. And now she's more relatable to Ossric, which I think is great as well. It creates a whole different dynamic. And I like the fact that Roghir is angered's not really the right word. More disappointed in his gods, I guess. How could you do something like this? Or how could you let something like this happen? And and this is coming from that sort of that ideal that we are kind of at the mercy of the higher beings, that we have a destiny. We feel that we have a destiny, but these things can alter that destiny at will. Is unnerving,
Mm-hmm.
And these gods, for the most part, they don't get their hands dirty. They get other beings to do it for them. Which is what makes it even worse. Is like they're not like, I'm not even gonna get my hands dirty. I mean, it's like, that's one of the big things.
Thank you for mentioning the Greek gods, because that kind of put things into perspective too. That they prescribe to these good and evil ideas, but really they're just heightened individuals.
Oh yeah.
That wield great power, and that they are fallible.
Absolutely.
And that while they might have the interest of the multiverse in their mind, they don't have the interest of us in their mind. And I think that's what Roghir is really rebelling against.
No, I agree. And that's great, which I think is fantastic, which is kind of what I was hoping for, actually. I was kind of hoping that he would be conflicted with this, because what the gods are doing and his idea of what the gods are supposed to do are completely in opposition to each other, and which I think is great. And I think, which is why I think Roghir's character has evolved how it has, and it's been fun to watch that character evolve to where he was so dedicated to the gods and what they wanted him to do, to the now you're starting to piss me off type of mentality. How could you do this, as opposed to thank you for doing this. Now it's like, how could you do this? It's more he's questioning more, as opposed to blind faith. Now I think he's seeing things with more open eyes. Because he for the most part, he only had dealings with Omnor, and I don't even know how close of dealings he had with Omnor, like visions and speaking to him like directly, But now he's got gods talking to all in both ears. And it's like, what do I do with this? What do I do with these things? And it's been great watching that happen.
Yeah. So Omnor, to Roghir, is like this quintessential old wise man.
Mm-hmm.
Not not revered so much as a god to be
Right.
worshipped, but as a sage to learn from. And it's like learning your grandpa has a fetish, and it's like, you know, there's something wrong about it. And every time he uses the feature to like call for help, for divine aid, that you get as a cleric at 10th level, if it fails, it like further solidifies in his brain that,
Okay, that makes sense.
that he is not being helped actively.
Okay, cool.
Anyway,
Well, I can tell you I'm excited to see how these two characters evolve in the next few sessions.
Yeah.
Knowing what they know and knowing what they don't know, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see what you guys do with them. So, all right. Well, I think that's our time. Thank you guys for joining me. It's been fun and exciting. I hope that we'll get to do some more of these, maybe one with all of us together, and talk about the overall campaign itself. So awesome, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. And I guess I'll see you guys Thursday, I guess. Maybe.
yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, cool. That's for Austen's campaign. We'll be playing his campaign on Thursday. So, but I'll see you guys in Orlea on Sunday. So, all right, guys. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Bye.